Okay, so we know that there is a robust UFO crash retrieval program that spans countries and has been going on for a long time. But where do they get these UFOs? Some of them seem to be intentionally downed UFOs. We've had multiple witnesses and even whistleblowers talking about bringing these objects down and then retrieving them. Indeed, that seems to be the case in the recent case that I reported on in Brazil. But some are incredibly ancient, apparently, even recovered from archaeological sites. So let's dive into that a little bit. Let's see what people like Lou Elizondo, Bob Lazar, and Ross Coulthart have to say about UFOs and high technology in ancient sites. Get in here, this is Jack with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like, please subscribe, share on social media, and let me know what you think about all this in the comments below. Alright, so here's Lou on Engaging the Phenomenon with James Gandoli, a really great channel if you haven't checked it out, and he has asked this very question.
You asked that question. I went to Eric Davis and I asked him, what do you think about Lou's statement? And Eric Davis said, and he authorized it for public use. What Lou said is 1,000% correct. And, the U.S. government has crashed and or landed UFOs. Why do you think he said that?
Well, I'm not going to answer for Eric Davis. Eric Davis is an incredible human being. I've had the honor and privilege of knowing him, and more importantly, I've also seen the work product that he's produced for this nation. And at some point, maybe one day it'll be clear all the stuff he has done for his country. But he really is. When you talk about American heroes, he really is one of those. He falls in that category quite squarely. He's an amazing human being. So I'm not going to elaborate on what Eric Davis thinks or says or knows. He's his own man. I can tell you that when he tells you something, he tells you the truth. He has no motivation other than the truth. As far as my own personal perspective, I have to be, here I'm going to throw something out that everybody gets pissed off at, but I've got to be careful because I'm walking a very fine line. If I say one or two words incorrectly as it relates to this particular topic, I can find myself in a lot of trouble. So I know people say, well, just say it anyways. Well, easy for you to say. You're going to feed my family. You're going to pay my kids' school and my mortgage when I'm in jail. No, you're not. So, that's not even realistic. So I have to be very careful. The question was posed to me, do I believe that the U.S. government is in possession of exotic material and whatnot? And my answer is yes. And until the government decides to be more transparent, I really can't elaborate on that. Other than that, when you let me give you a hypothetical. When you find a piece of something, there's really three layers of analysis you can conduct. You can conduct the physical analysis, looking at electric conductivity, the shape, the size, the weight, Then you do a chemical or molecular analysis to look at the way the molecules are arranged, and determine, the characteristics of something at the molecular level. And then you have atomic or nano level research where you're looking at the individual construct of the atoms and how they are arranged at the very, very small level, isotopic ratios and things like that. And when you see something, a piece of material that's been clearly engineered, meaning there's some sort of intelligence to put things together, and at the nano level, there are some peculiarities that fall outside the normal range of what you might consider, let's say, nickel or aluminum or magnesium or bismuth, then you have to say, okay, who created it and how? And at the end of the day, when you have material that has been found before supposedly we as a species had a technology to engineer it that way, then you've got to ask the question. And this is why I've said before, a 747 isn't uncommon to see at an international airport. But imagine being the first guy to break into King Tut's tomb, and of all the things you find in there, you find an intact 747 sitting in the tomb. doesn't make sense, does it? Because 747s weren't around when King Tut was around. So what the hell is a 747 doing in King Tut's tomb? So that's the best analogy that I can use without going into further detail. I've tried to be very careful.
Okay, so there you go. Lou talking about using an analogy to get across the idea that we have found high technology, possibly high technology that is flyable or some sort of vehicle in an archaeological site. So that is extremely intriguing. Tell us more, Lou. But of course he can't, and he has just told us why he can't. I would love to know the specifics of what is actually going on. As a fantasy writer, my mind really loves the idea of an Indiana Jones style adventure going into some underground tomb or archaeological site or beneath the pyramids or something and finding an intact UFO. I just think that's a lovely story idea. However, it seems to have actually happened, or something like that has happened. Some high technology has been found where it should not have been found, in some sort of archaeological tomb. And this goes along quite well with something Bob Lazar said. Let's hear what Bob has to say.
I think at least one of them was part of an archaeological dig. So it's old. At least one of them is old. I don't know if it was the one I worked on, but I remember something to do with an archaeological dig.
Whoa.
So that means it's not just old, it's ancient.
That'd be a great Steven Spielberg movie.
Yeah.
Right?
As all of it would.
Yeah.
Joe and I think alike. So one of the craft that apparently was in the possession of S4 seems to have come from an archaeological dig, at least one. Now, it's curious to find it inside of a dig, of an archaeological dig, because to me that implies it was there. It wasn't crashed. It probably wasn't shot down. It was some sort of landed craft that was still there at the time the site was abandoned or whatever. Maybe indeed, as Lou says, in part of a tomb, somewhere it wouldn't be disturbed. I don't know how else it could have logically wound up inside of an archaeological dig, where they were uncovering historical sites, like tombs, for example, and found a UFO. There's been a lot of crashes. Obviously, I suppose there could have been a random crash in an archaeological dig. But to me, that implies it was there at the time this site was abandoned or sealed off, which is very, very intriguing. What does that mean? To me, that implies a connection between the ancients, whoever these people were. Obviously my mind goes to Egypt, but who knows? It implies a connection between the ancient world and the ETs. And of course, if it was Egypt, or even older, that would make sense to me, because I've studied Atlantis as much as I can. There's a lot of iffy information out there about Atlantis, unfortunately. But there is also a lot of solid information about Atlantis, or at least for the existence of Atlantis, and some semi-solid information about Atlantis itself. And one of the persistent stories about Atlantis, of course, is that they were working with the beings, or at some point in their past they had worked with the beings, and that they had, may even have come from up there. So it would make sense to me if there was this ongoing relationship between the beings and humanity in some of these ancient civilizations, and that's how we wound up with a UFO in a tomb, if indeed that is what happened. And that's kind of what it sounds like. What do you guys think? I also wanted to talk about what Ross had to say. I made a whole video about this a few days ago. I think this is just really exciting from my perspective. But I want to replay it because it goes so well with what we're talking about today. Here's Ross.
Been given any specific evidence, Irene, and indeed the evidence that I do have is the evidence of witnesses and sources who've spoken to me confidentially, largely from within the intelligence or the scientific community in America. But I mean, generally, without giving away secrets, what I can tell you is that a number of them have pointed to the fact that there are ruins of ancient civilizations that display technological mastery that is far beyond the stated age of those objects. A lot of the objects, for example, in the Cairo Museum that have been retrieved from some of the great archaeological discoveries in ancient Egypt, some as long ago as 5,500 years, which are, pre-dynastic Egyptian relics. They display a technology and a mastery of technology involving the shaping of stone, which is far beyond the technology, the known technology of that era. And it's interesting. I think a lot of people, if they actually bothered to look, would be able to actually inform themselves about the existence of files in the CIA library that show that America's premier intelligence service has spent a lot of time investigating ancient civilizations. Why is the premier intelligence agency in the United States devoting a considerable amount of time and money in the last 50 or 60 years to investigating ancient civilizations? And why has it secretly backed archaeological digs in different parts of the world? What does it know that we don't know? I mean, these are things that are facts. They're not things that are speculation. There are inquiries going on.
I think they know about Atlantis. I mean, that's really the only conclusion you can draw, right? The intelligence agencies know about this high technology that should not have existed in places where it should not have existed. Yeah, call it Atlantis, call it whatever you want. Clearly, something interesting was going on there that goes against what the historians have told us. Now, from the research I've done, there was indeed at least one ancient super civilization before our modern epoch. Probably multiple, and indeed there could have been an entire series of ancient super civilizations. There could have been an ancient super civilization that was as remote to Atlantis as Atlantis is to us, and one before that, and one before that, and so on. So some of you, again, will say this is all woo-woo and crazy, but here we have Bob Lazar, Lou Elizondo, and Ross Coulthart all talking about this very thing, and we have the intelligence agencies secretly looking in to these ancient archaeological sites and finding high technology. So what is going on there? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this video, please give me a big thumbs up. I sure would appreciate it. Smash the like button, smash the subscribe button, and the bell to be notified of future videos. You don't want to miss a thing. Join me on social media. There's Facebook and Twitter links below. I would love to see you guys there, and there are plenty of other videos to check out on the channel. See you next time. This is Jack with Cosmic Road.